Hi, everyone, and welcome to our panel today. My name is Clayton Portz. I am a advisor and venture fellow here at Newchip. I'm joined by Chris Buetti and Cynthia Murphy, and we will be discussing sort of some of the ideas around company culture today, especially with early stage startups. I'd like to introduce my guests today, and we're so happy to have them. Chris Buetti is the co-founder and CEO of Digital Prezence, a software platform that helps solve the problems related to influencer marketing. Prior to starting Digital Prezence, he'd gained incredible experience working as a software engineer at NBC and the NBA. He holds a degree in computational mathematics from Wake Forest. Thanks, Chris, for stopping by and spending some time with us today. Cynthia is the co-founder of Assuaged alongside her husband, Thane. She is a craniofacial disability activist, a health and wellness activist, and a fashion model. She has overcome many chronic health conditions caused by Treacher Collins Syndrome, a genetic birth defect that affects the bones, muscles, and soft tissues in the face and skull. She holds a master's degree in public health, and she is currently pursuing her doctorate's degree, her doctorate in business administration. Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you, Chris, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Of course. So let's jump into the questions here. The first one's going to be pretty broad. So I want to hear sort of your take on what is your understanding of team culture. How would you describe it, and what is sort of the culture of your business right now? Chris, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, team culture is something that was important to me, especially when I started my own company. When I was working at the NBA, I'm a really big basketball fan, and I thought that would be a dream job for me, but it was very, very stereotypically corporate and vanilla, and I didn't want that for me. So company culture to me is the atmosphere in which you're enjoying your work and you're enjoying your teammates, trying to keep things all on the same playing field, keeping things level, which we do think we do, a good job of. It's the idea that you're cognizant of your hierarchy, the how strict people are going to be about things, how much you can actually enjoy doing your work. So it's something that was really important when I went ahead and started Digital Prezence.
Yeah, that's really good to hear, and it's interesting to hear how and we'll actually get into this a bit later, but how there's sort of a difference between the big company culture, like the NBA, I would imagine is a pretty large organization, how it might change when you get into these smaller companies, and we're going to get into sort of the reverse of that here in a little bit. But yeah, thank you for that, Chris. Cynthia, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So team culture is really important when it comes to treating each other equally, and people just want to be treated like they're human. And there's other corporations that I have worked for before becoming founder of Assuaged, and I just didn't feel like I was completely treated 100% nicely, you would say. So we've built our culture with like-minded people. Everyone just gets along, and there's ethics behind everything that we do as well. We always seek to work together proactively in a way that is accepting and loving of everyone.
Yeah, that's interesting to hear, because especially with the I guess we didn't introduce what I like to call your army of interns. Cynthia has what, over 80 interns?
Yeah,
you work with, right?
About 85.
85, yeah, which is incredible, especially to hold a culture of caring and compassion for everyone within the company at that sort of level. And I'm curious, Cynthia, maybe you could start with this question. When you're making a new hire, or even when you're taking on an investor or an advisor, what are sort of some of the standards or actions that you implement? Is there anything unique maybe you do to test the culture or the character of this new hire or this new investor you're speaking with, or the new advisor you're considering bringing on?
Yeah, great question. So there's a process, and social media is one of my go-to solutions. It really allows you to vet and verify that these are people and they're, liked by other people, and they have some kind of background that's credible on LinkedIn. You can also see their volunteer work sometimes on Facebook. So it allows you to see more of the personality of the people that you could be bringing on. So one of the things that I do is my initial application, I have psychology questions that kind of scan their personalities, and they'll select, do you believe in that doctors are the only source of healing, or do you believe in self-care and self-healing measures? Kind of allows you to see if they have a internal locus of control or external locus of control. Whereas internal, they believe that they have the power to heal themselves and to find health remedies that work for them, whereas an external is someone that relies on doctors. So they'll be ones that rely on their friends and family. So they may need a little bit more support instead of like taking a leader role. But you can also, when they fill out your application, you can see if they're only putting like 4 words answers, and they're not, writing out a paragraph and really taking the time to answer the questions on your intake form, then they might not be a good candidate either. But in that, there's always a reference that you need to at least have one reference that comes from a .edu, .mil, .gov, .org email, because anyone can make a Gmail account. So you can verify that they're vetted for through someone at a work agency or whatnot, a professor. So that's kind of what I do in terms of the vetting process.
That's kind of interesting about the email. I hadn't heard of that before. Making sure that if they apply with their student ID or their student email or their former work email or whatever the case may be, they're at least vetted. I'd be interested to know how that would work when, say, you're looking to make a full-time hire and they can't use their their current work email to to apply for a new job. But yeah, I think it's certainly an important task and an important undertaking to make sure that your new hires and especially your new investors, believe in the mission and what the company's doing. Like for yourself, if you truly believe that, what we are doing is good for sort of this wholeness and health mission that we're on. Chris, I'm curious, do you have any tactics you use to sort of test the culture and character of any new hires, investors, advisors that you might bring on?
Yeah, I guess for me, it would be different depending on how frequently I think I'll be conversing with them. If it's someone I'm, talking to every single day, multiple times a day, I'm going to have a different standard for how that person interacts, as opposed to an investor who I might hear from once a month or something like that. So for me, the first gauge is, how often will I work with them? If it's very, very frequently, I will pick someone I get along with, who, I feel like I can work with well over talents and over knowledge. And my co-founder, one of my co-founders and I, we work together every minute of every day, and have for the last 6 to 8 months. And I've never met him in person before. So, it's someone that I feel like I could consider like a best friend of mine, and yet I've never seen him face to face. I actually have no idea how tall he is. Whereas, as an investor, right, I care less about that, and I care more about how knowledgeable they are of the industry or maybe the connections they can make and things like that. So it really would depend on where they fit in that spectrum of how I would decide if they're a good fit for us or not.
Yeah, that's some really good points, and I think one thing to take away from that, you said you would hire somebody that you believe you could work best with, and skills and knowledge are important, but they're not the most important. And I think something to take away from that is you can teach skills and knowledge. You can't particularly teach character and culture.
Right.
And to make sure that there's that fit there, we can build your skills, if you're lacking in a certain area.
Yep.
And it's almost on the flip side for an investor. We can't teach an investor to know the industry, but we can sort of at least vet some of the how they think about our business, how they think about the industry, and so forth. Yeah,
Right.
Chris, you mentioned earlier that talking about some of the culture with the MBA and so forth, and you said you've worked at NBC, obviously another big corporation. What have been some of the differences between your experience at some of these bigger corporations and what you've experienced so far as a founder?
Yeah, there's a saying I've heard from a lot of people when I talk about the startup life, and they say I don't want to be just another number in the system, right? It's funny, when I worked at NBC, that was taken a little bit too literally. We literally were a number, and we were referred to sometimes by that number. Our login was a 10-digit number. And, I said to myself that day, I never really want to do this again. I want to be able to enjoy my coworkers. I want to be able to not stare at the clock counting down every second of the day. I said, okay, I'm going to go to the NBA. I know it's another big company, but I'm a huge basketball fan, and there's no way it's going to be like this again. And, it was. And, that was probably the biggest motivation for me to want to do my own thing. If I didn't enjoy working at the NBA as the biggest basketball fan ever, I'm probably not going to enjoy any typical 9-to-5 corporate job. So now for me, I'm doing a little bit of everything. I'm, programming, I'm, dealing with clients, dealing with investors, solving problems and things like that. And I'm not, just dreading for the day to be over. Sometimes I forget what day of the week it is, and that's, to me, a good thing, because doing work on a Saturday versus a Tuesday versus a Friday, it doesn't really matter to me at all. I enjoy it. I enjoy it everywhere and every time. So, I would say the biggest thing for me is actually just enjoying what you do, truly enjoying it, rather than saying, oh, I work for X big company and I make Y amounts of money. It's you got one life to live. You got to enjoy what you're doing. So.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Cynthia. I know you are also very passionate, with Assuaged. I'd love to hear your thoughts as well.
Yeah. So adding on to what you just said, Chris, it's really interesting in the corporate culture and feeling like another number, because that's exactly where I was at. I mean, I didn't work at, I worked at a mechanical engineering firm. I'm not sure whether or not they were Fortune 500, but they're pretty well off financially. And so I felt like, people that I worked with were in competition with each other. And I'm sitting here trying to be a team player and add value and grow together with you so we can accomplish some wins. So I saw that a lot in, the workforce. I also worked for one of the leading law firms in Vegas. So one thing is, like, every job I've ever had, I've been able to take pieces. And from this job was my favorite job because, we had a bunch of lawyers. It was construction defects. So it was really just kind of the same process for every case with the homeowners and the home inspections and suing the third party contractors. But we worked together as a team. And whenever we made some big wins, the owner of the law firm would come through with like a big bottle of tequila and $3,000 bonuses. Everybody got, they were equals. And so he just treated people so amazing. And so I really took from that experience. And so I think with other corporations, though, it's just very standard, and there's no substance behind, it gets so boring going 9 to 5 and doing the same thing. And So that's what, I think also adds to making a successful entrepreneur is taking those pieces and molding something of your own, which is what we've done at Assuaged. I also did an internship program for when I had to get when I could get my master's degree. And so that was 200 hours of my life towards a nonprofit, which was amazing. But I just noticed like a lot of my ideas were shut down. It was really black and white. There wasn't much color, and I couldn't really add as much value as I wanted to. So in our internship program, bringing all these people in, you kind of allow them to create jobs for themselves. This book that I'm reading, well, I've read it twice now, but it's called The Sales Acceleration Formula, and it's how HubSpot became a multi-billion-dollar industry. And so it literally takes 6 months to make a rock star. I mean, but at the end of the day, once that person, they've stayed with you that long. I mean, because we still have a handful of our first interns that started in January. So they had, when they started with no work experience or technology capabilities, really, they didn't know Slack or Monday. They just kind of came in and it was intimidating. But now they're rock stars. Now they know how to utilize these softwares. Now they understand the startup industry, and they're in it to win it. So hopefully that.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible. You've turned it sort of into this learning experience. And sorry, the sunlight has finally broken through here in New York, so it's coming at me. But no, it's interesting. You speak about sort of changing the script on some of the experiences you had to now provide, Cynthia, like what you said with your interns, to provide a different experience for them. And I'm curious, as you both know, you get to as the company grows, you get to these large corporations and the culture all of a sudden becomes different. How do you plan on preserving sort of the culture around your company as you grow? You become a unicorn with 200 or 300 employees. How do you plan on preserving that culture? And does it mean the boss walking around with handing out tequila shots like like Cynthia mentioned? Yeah, Cynthia, do you have any thoughts on that?
That's one thing that I've been really cautious about is I've been staying under 90 because that's what I could handle, and I need to find someone. Ultimately, my goal is to find someone that could do the recruitment process that I am doing in a way that will sustain and preserve how we are operating now. And right now, what we're doing is also better organizing, getting our internal operations organized and people buddied up, and so that way we have a consistent workflow and we're organized. But it's really important to not go in excess and go over what you can handle. So I've been very mindful of that as we continue to grow. A lot of our students are for academic credit. So we've gotten a lot of universities that send us students that need 200 hours here. We just got a student that needs 380 hours. We had a student that needs 500 hours. So that's a lot of work that they need to do. And they're not always going to stay because they did that to get their credit. They had a great experience, but now they're ready to go out there and get a job. And so that's okay too. So we have a flow of interns that finish their hours, and then I'm buried in paperwork. I need to find someone to help me with the paperwork because it's a lot. Yeah. So, but it's a form of capital when you have not all of these interns helping you build your brand, but also providing incentives to them where they can learn, how to work in operations of a startup. So we also provide educational certifications through the HubSpot and through the LinkedIn. So they get these certifications and they bucket them under their LinkedIn profile. So that's very valuable. That does cost us money, but it also costs us money to sustain the HubSpot for the website and all that anyways. So why not utilize the academy that they give you and utilize that they allow you to add an unlimited amount of people
Right.
on there to access the academy. And then, once you have a student leave, you could leave it open for like 30 days, just, as a token of appreciation and the time that they served. And then, deactivate. And if some students return, even we've had a handful of people come back. So yeah, it's really exciting. I'm excited to share this too. So
Of course, yeah, that's interesting too, and kind of a unique approach because training can get very expensive and time consuming. If you try to tackle it all at once on your own. And we do advocate that the CEO should be involved in training in some way. But if you can use some of these third-party tools like you mentioned, you could knock out and give your employees a lot of really useful skills, at a fairly minimum investment. Chris, do you have any thoughts on how you plan to sort of preserve and grow the culture as the company grows?
Yeah. So, it's a good question. And if I'm fortunate enough to have, my company grow that big that I really have to think about that. I'm going to do things like remember this conversation we're having today and remember the things I didn't like about my previous jobs and things I did like when I had my own little thing. And I think what's important is talking to your employees, talking to your teammates, and really figuring out what they like and what they don't like and trying to make it, more enjoyable for them, because at the end of the day, their success is your success. So, one thing I know everyone in my company likes is the fact that we don't have to dress up ever. You can wear black t-shirts and sweats whenever we want. And that's something, I plan to take. I don't if my company grows to millions of employees, I will never, ever implement any sort of dress code. I will take that to my grave. So it's really taking advantage of understanding why you're enjoying what you're doing right now and kind of making sure you keep those roots, because, that's what made you want to do this. That's what made you enjoy doing what you're doing. So you can't switch that, or else people are going to feel the same way you did when you weren't happy. So it's really understanding what makes me happy now, writing that out, whether literally or figuratively, and sticking true to those principles as you grow and get bigger.
Yeah, absolutely. Because at the end of the day, you want it doesn't matter. Like you said, if you have 1 million employees, you want it to be a company you'd like to still come to work every day and work for, right? It'll be interesting to see all these, all these folks in t-shirts and sweatpants walking around with the suits and Patagonia vests in Midtown when you get that office. Thanks for sharing that. And it's almost inspirational way to say you really want to keep and drive the culture that you're working with now. It doesn't matter how many employees you have. Create a company that you'd like to come to the office every day and work for, and have people that you'd like to come and see every day and work alongside, right? I have one last question for you both. A lot of our companies, probably, as that we work with here at Newchip, they're in the very early stages of their business. They might not be still looking for a co-founder. They might be looking to hire their first employee or first couple employees. Chris, you have a few team members. Cynthia, we've mentioned your army of interns. What advice would you give to the founder that is looking to hire their first employee, or their first maybe their first co-founder, or their first segment of employees? Chris, do you have any thoughts?
I might want to let Cynthia go first on this one, because I need to figure out how how I could get 90 interns. But for me, it was always, one thing if I could pick a skill I have, it's understanding what people are good at and what they're not good at, almost to a fault. When I meet someone, whether they're brand new or someone I've known my whole life, I automatically start listing off in my head, okay, this person is good at negotiation and sales, but they're probably not the most technical person. And I start rattling those things off in my mind about every person I meet. So for me, when I was choosing who my co-founders would be, I have two of them. It was really understanding what my weaknesses were. So, I'm a computer programmer, but I'm not the best at it. And I especially don't have good front end experience. I can talk to people, but I'm not the most organized person. So maybe someone that's really good at sales, would be better for that. And really, as much as I didn't want to admit it, picking my flaws and then understanding people, that do have, are better than you at those things. So I ended up with a very, very technical co-founder, who is very happy to sit behind a computer and write ones and zeros all day. And then my other co-founder is someone who is very outgoing, very personable, loves to do sales, but, would admit that he struggles to open Internet Explorer. And I kind of sit right in the middle of the two. So I guess my advice would be to really think about your own weaknesses and then try to find people who fill those gaps.
Yeah, some really good thoughts. Cynthia, do you have anything to add?
I love that, Chris. Thank you for sharing. I think if you're a startup founder, you have a lot of passion for what you're wanting to build. So building a meaningful mission behind the passion and the startup that you're building is really important, because there are people out there that there's lots of hands. They want to help you, and they're going to appeal to you. These are people that are likely, they would be your friend in real life. They're, like Ryan Ruffles, I would say, of Newchip. My husband and I immediately gravitated towards him and the people, the culture. Clayton, you've been a wonderful advisor. So there's a big community being built around Newchip. And so the same concept of what Assuaged is doing that. And people can relate to the mission. Everyone has a different mission and meaning behind the cause. You just have to leverage on that, find those people that can relate to you and that'll want to help you build on this. And another thing to make great use of is surveys, internal surveys. Find out what your people want and need, find out what skills they want to build on, and then help them build on those skills and become masters at the craft. So I think that's something that we've done for Assuaged, and it's just worked out great. And we're still learning every day. It's not perfect, and that's the art of a startup, is learning what works and what doesn't, and just becoming the best you can be at building that. So I think that's what I have to add.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This has been so incredible, guys. I appreciate so much that you take the time to join us and share your experiences. Thanks again for spending your time with us. And to everyone watching, we'll see you soon.
Thank you.